Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. If evidence is ever needed, which it probably isn't, that Ian Blackford is simply in it for himself, then we have it here. He is trying to explore different ways in which he can be made a Lord and sit in the House of Lords at Westminster. You see, he's had enough of the House of Commons, which is his way of saying, I'm not going to win my seat at the next election and I'm out. But as I've already resigned, I think it would be nice if I got bumped upstairs to the House of Lords. And I don't know if anyone would be willing to do that. But even if they were, there is one tiny problem. And that is, as the members of the SNP, they are by party diktat Republicans. They don't believe that there should be a king. They don't believe that there should be a House of Lords. And indeed the party insists that its SNPs do not take seats in the Lords. They don't regard it as a genuine chamber. It's against their party principles. So what's he to do? Well, he's now looking for a back door. He says he could go to Holyrood, but because he needs to earn a lot more money before he retires, because those pies aren't cheap. But Holyrood is okay, but it involves a lot more work and it doesn't pay as much as going up to the House of Lords. And so he's looking around this way of trying to get himself bumped up without breaking the rules. And it wouldn't surprise me if he very, very shortly announces that he's an independent. Not, of course, that he cares about Scottish independence. Simply, he cares about providing enough money in his old age to quaff Greg's pies on a regular basis. Take a quick look at this, but it does go to show that he's all in it for himself. But then they all are, aren't they? Shouldn't really be a surprise. But a bit two-faced, Mr. Blackford, don't you think? Here goes. So Ian Blackford is keen on a cushy seat in the House of Lords, but the SNP ban on peerages means he's now looking at Holyrood. But of course at Holyrood he'd have to work and he doesn't get paid as much. And that doesn't suit him. He's looking for a nice cushy number in the House of Lords where he can go in, sleep all day, pick up his £500 a day or whatever it is, attendance allowance, and generally push off at the end of the day and say nom 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 nom. Anyway, the former SNP Westminster leader is standing down as an MP next year and is said to have been exploring ways to get around the Nats' refusal to accept seats in the House of Lords. That's of course because they are Republicans and they don't recognise the Lords. Former Westminster SNP leader in Blackford has been exploring ways to get around the SNP's refusal to accept seats in the House of Lords, according to sources. The Ross Skye and Lochaber MP has announced that he will stand down at the next general election because he's unlikely to win. He's seen the way the wind is blowing and knows it's better to go on his terms than have himself be fired by the electorate. But he is said on being keen to accept the offer of a peerage. However, the Nats refuse to nominate people to be members of the House of Lords and there's never been an SNP peer. However, he could go as an independent and that would allow someone to do it. Mr. Blackford is not the only politician said to be aggrieved at the party's long-standing position. Sources now suggest he is instead thinking of turning his sights on Holyrood and the possibility of contesting an Edinburgh seat for the Nats in 2026. But for that, of course, he'd need someone to willingly allow him to become the candidate. And do they really want this ageing man, this fat, basically fat, lazy old man, to represent them? Anyway, a Whitehall insider said Ian would be an asset to the Lords, and he's been very keen to find a way around the SNP ban. However, this would put too many noses out of joint, so instead he's looking at the possibility of standing to become an MSP. But he desperately wants to be a Lord. Although the 62-year-old lives, is he only 62? God almighty, I thought he was near 70 odd. Anyway, he lives on the Isle of Skye, but he was born and brought up in Edinburgh and lived in the capital for years during his previous career as an investment banker. But he always claims that he's just a humble crofter with millions upon millions in the bank. The source said he's got his heart set on a seat in Edinburgh. Last month, he hinted at a return to politics when he declared that he was still a young man. Well, that's quite clearly a lie. And said, there's still a bit of life in the old dog yet. I hope not. That old dog does need to be, taken to the vets. Over the Rainbow Bridge, mate. Woof, woof, woof. Several members of the House of Lords have previously spoken out about the SNP's refusal to accept peerages and said their absence creates problems for the second chamber. No, can't think of any problems. Former diplomat and crossbench peer Lord Kerr of Kinlochard said in 2020 the SNP has always refused to send anybody to the House of Lords, which I think is a great problem, he says. I think it was a mistake. I think if it is in order for the SNP to be represented in the House of Commons, then I don't understand the point of the principle. The issue is said to have resulted in yet more divisions within the SNP group at Westminster, with those on the left, such as Mary Black and Tommy Shepherd, resolutely opposed to even the existence of the House of Lords. They absolutely hate it. I disagree with the principle of it being, how can we put it, risen. You're sent to the House of Lords. I think it should. I think we do need a second chamber, a Senate, if you will. But I think it should be an elected Senate, and I think it's say 300 seats is all you need. And you just have 300 seats, but they have to be elected, and it's a one-term election, something like that. And it's not there to create. They don't create laws, but they do stand as a sort of check and balance against what the House of Commons is trying to propose. And so it gives people an idea, just to say, look, okay, it's a good idea, but can we change this to this and this? And it just adds a bit of sanity to the proceedings. And of course, the point is, if you have, say, a 7-year churn, and that is if anyone resigns or dies within it, they don't get elected at the general election. It's a continual churn, continually changing. And that way, it represents a snapshot at that time, but not necessarily how the country votes now. So it can act as a check on an extremist government. But, that's something for another day. Anyway, others, including Mr Blackford and Philippa Whitford, the Central Ayrshire MP, who's also standing down next year, are said to be more open-eyed to the idea of a peerage. Of course they do. They want money. They've got nothing else to do. Some have suggested that Miss Whitford's experience in medicine as a breast surgeon means she would be a valuable addition to the Lords. Now, of course, the thing is, normally a party puts forward names to a committee, and then come things like the New Year's Honours List, or I can say the Queen, the King's Birthdays Honours List, things like that. There are certain other times when they can be raised to the Lords. But it doesn't necessarily have to come from the party. For example, an outgoing Prime Minister has the right to appoint anyone he sees fit to appoint. And so it could be that should Rishi Sunak resign, albeit forced out or whatever, he could put Blackford up to the Lords, or Philippa Whitford up to the Lords as part of his resignation honours list. That doesn't require the SNP to put forward names. That is entirely the gift of the outgoing Prime Minister, and so that could do it, and that would get him around it. But it would then alienate those two if they were elected to the Lords, or pushed to the Lords. It would alienate them from a large proportion of the SNP. And that's another split in the SNP, which is a good thing. Anyway, in separate comments, Scottish Labour peer George Fuchs said, "I know for a fact that the SNP have been offered seats in the Lords on a number of occasions in the past. I've been teasing Ian Blackford about getting a seat in the Lords whenever he comes into the tea room, and I believe his attitude has changed somewhat since he stepped down from the leadership. He now appears to have taken a never say never approach. Mr Blackford's office has been approached for a comment, but comment came there none, because he doesn't want to annoy the other members of the SNP. But I think he is absolutely desperate to get up to the Lords, just for that easy life and easy money, because it's all about him." Anyway, I shall round off and come up. You just know he'd be completely over the moon if he managed to get there, wouldn't you? If like I say, if Rishi Sunak resigned and said, right, Ian Blackford, and made him something, Lord Blackford of Greggs or something, and he could go up and sit there with his ermine and his pies, and quaff the tea all day in the on the red leather seats, and feel full of his own self-importance and smugness. And the great thing is, once they go to the Lords, nobody really ever hears from them again, and I think that would be beneficial. Rather than if you put him in the Holyrood, he'd be insistent on making speeches and talking a load of old rubbish. Whereas at least in the Lords, people can quite easily ignore him and forget he's even there. So maybe we should bump him to the Lords. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember that when you send them to the Lords, they disappear. Bye.